Hey guys, what's up? Eddie Aho here with kissanalog.com. Alright, so you want to start a lab, so you probably need a power supply. Well, Devish Mohan, I'm sorry if I butchered that name, but he asked about some power supplies and how do you choose? What are the things to look for? So let's just kind of go over the power supplies and I'll kind of point out some differences, some pointers, okay? We'll make this quick. Alright, so what I have here is a couple dual tracking power supplies, actually a few of them, and we want to talk about that. Let me turn them on. They're kind of fans kick on, so that's one thing right away. You get some fan noise. Now there are options where the fan turns on as they start to heat up or as you start to load them down. So that, if you want a quiet power supply, you might want to choose one of those. So I've got these digital ones. I've got this old HP right here. These are all tracking power supplies. So these two are triple output power supplies. This is a dual output power supply. It's just a tracking. You know, what's the big deal about a tracking power supply? You know, why the triple versus the duals? Well, I kind of think it was a marketing thing maybe. Or, you know, maybe they said, hey, we got a bunch of dual trackings. Let's add a third and we'll be one leg up on the other guy. It was actually a good idea though, probably too. We'll discuss that in a moment. You know, one thing you might be thinking about right now is you can get power supplies in a form factor like this active load, but you can get power supplies in a form factor like this, and they might be less expensive, and you might have more flexibility. You get 3 of those and have a triple output, right? But like I say, these are tracking power supplies, and so the basic fundamental advantage of a tracking power supply is that you can use one knob to control both outputs to come up and down. So that's pretty nice. If you're powering an audio amplifier or any kind of, you know, op amp or power amplifier of any sort where you have a plus minus voltage rail, then that helps you. Now you can also have maybe a circuit where you have, say, 5 volts and 3.3. Well, you know, that's not going to help you the same way because these are tracking, so they want to have the same output usually. All right, so it doesn't really give you that advantage. Okay, so if you're looking for lab supply, I really think the tracking outputs, whether it's dual or triple, is for me is the most important thing. The third output, I can always get another power supply to provide me, say, 5 volts or whatever. So that is maybe not a deciding factor for me. So what is the most important thing? Well, okay, first of all, you've decided to get a tracking power supply. The next thing is, what's the voltage rail that it'll go to? What's the max voltage on each one? And what's the max current? And, you know, that's really the thing that kind of led me to buy this one when I already had this guy. So this guy up here is capable of 220 volt outputs. Each one's capable of 2.5 amps. So what I wanted though is I wanted a little bit more voltage, so I wanted 30 volts. So I got this one, it'll put 30 volts out on each one, plus it'll go to 3 amps on each output. So this one's better, right? You know, I guess I could replace this one or get rid of this one, but there's another thing this guy does is he offers programmability. So that's kind of cool too. Because obviously you can see that this one has knobs on both these two. And this one's push button. Okay. I really prefer, if I had to choose one over the other, I would go with knobs so I can bring up the voltage nice and slow. Now with this one, I'll bring the camera over here and show you close-ups of this stuff, okay? But on this one, you can kind of push the up arrow and go up, and then down arrow down, but it kind of goes up in steps, and it doesn't have the modulation or the granularity that you have when you can just take a knob like that and turn it. On eBay, you can get used power supplies. You can get really good deals. That's where I got these two. I've had this one for years. I don't remember. I probably bought that at a flea market back east, I think. All right, so if you're choosing one thing, like I say, most important thing probably is the voltage and current levels. They're tracking, right? Now, I keep on saying tracking. What does tracking mean? I said you can use one knob to bring two voltages up. So if you put them in series, you want plus or minus say 20 volts capability, 0 to 20. Well, I can do that with either one of these. And what I do is I can push the buttons and say put it in series, and then it puts both of these outputs in series. Or I can say put them in parallel, and I can double my current that way. Or I can just have them operate independently. So I have just independent outputs. I can adjust this one for 5 volts, this one for 12 volts. Actually, I have a 5 volt fix. Okay, so when you do get a third output, let me just explain something. Sometimes they're fixed, like in this case, 5 volts, 3 amps. So it's capable of up to 3 amps at 5 volts. This one's variable. It's 0 to 6 volts up to 5 amp. Variable third output is really nice. So if that, if you got two that you can't decide between, that third output, the way it works might be the deciding factor for you. Okay, so now we got past how much current, how much voltage they're all capable of. What's the next thing? Well, obviously you can see the meters are different. This one, I can switch between volts and amps on each side. So each power supply, each output, this one's called the slave and this is called the master. So on either one of them, I can control the voltage and current separately, and I can look at the amps and volts, but I have to switch back and forth. So if I'm, dialing this guy up, then I have to switch it over to see how much current I have. This guy up here, it has volts and amps, and you choose which output you want to look at. That's kind of a big difference between the two. Well, and then on this analog one over here, this old guy, it's kind of like this one. It has a meter for each output, and you can switch between volts and amps. So it's kind of like these. Now, I'll tell you what I do often is I'll put this in parallel mode, and even if I don't need all that current, maybe I only need 1 amp. One output's plenty, but I'll put them in parallel. That way both outputs are operating, and I'll put one in current and one in volts, and that way since they're both sharing current, I'll see how much current it's taking, and I'll see if the current pops up too fast, the faster I want, and I think there's a problem. So now the thing about that though is, since they're in parallel, this current meter is only giving me the current for this one output. So in my mind, I have to double that number, knowing that I'm getting really twice that current out. Now the other thing is there's option of putting them in series and doing the same thing, putting this one in current and this one in volts. Now the current's going to be the same through both because they're in series, but the voltage, I have to remember, if it says 10 volts, I really have 20 volts out. That's awesome. That's pretty cool. I like that. Now this older style is kind of like this one. It just, as soon as you dial it up, it's putting the voltage on the output. It doesn't have a switch to turn it on and off. All right, so then the last thing to kind of think about is the programmability. One of the things nice about the programmability of this guy is that you can set it up to step the voltage up, step it down, and you can do some cool programming things with this guy. So if you want to be able to do those kind of things, then that's pretty cool. And then also some of the newer power supplies, I think this power supply and some of the new ones, they also run off some software off your PC that you can control that way as well. Okay guys, I'm going to bring the camera over here, show you some close-ups of these. We'll hook them up and I'll kind of show you how you can set up the current. I talked about how you can set the current limit on this. You can set the current limit on this one too. I'm going to show you how you do that. We'll do that real quick, and then I'll show you some of those other power supplies and give you some pricing. Okay, let's bring the camera over here and let's do it. Okay guys, so this is the GWN stack, the GPC3030D, triple output, 5 volt, 3 amp fixed here, and this is the slave, and this side's the master. If it's an independent, when you have both buttons out, it's independent. See, the constant voltage lights are on, so this is voltage, constant voltage regulation, constant current right here. This is my constant current. And then series this one's out, this one's in, okay? And then parallel, they both go in. So one of them goes to constant current and one goes to constant voltage. So I can set up the current and the voltage with this. So that's how those guys work. So like say this 5 volts, it's capable of 3 amps out. Now let's just zoom out a little bit so you can see that. It's actually 4.966 says my Habo test HT118A meter. Nice meter. Here, I'll turn on the backlight, see if it's easier to see. So, all right, so there you go. So there's that output. Now let's go to this guy, the master. Okay, now see, I can bring up the voltage here, and there we go. It says 3.6 here, 3.5 there. You could hear the relays click, I think, could you? Listen for that. It has some internal relays right around 8 volts. I don't know if you can hear that, but let's go up a little higher. Right there, there's a relay. Right there, another one. And it goes up to 31.6. Rated at 30, but it goes up to 31.6. And up here we say 31.67. So let's just see. Let's go at 20. We'll go around 18.3, 18.3. Go 9, 9.3. Yeah, it's pretty darn close, huh? Let's go down to 1 volt on the display here. Okay, it says 1. And it says about 0.9 there. So I would tend to believe this guy. 1.4, 1.3, it's starting to come in. 1.9, it's getting closer. Getting even closer. So down at the low voltages, it's always nice, by the way, to use a multimeter. I've got a couple meters, I think. But anyway, use a multimeter at the input of your circuit to also take into account for the drops in your leads, but also to take into account for any miscalibration there, okay? Now let me show you something here. Let's take out, or hold on a sec. Okay, I'm gonna show you how to set up the current limit on this meter. So what you do is you pull out your red one, and I'll just go ahead, I'm gonna bring this current all the way down to 0. I'm gonna go ahead and plug it right in. So I'm shorting the output right here. And I'm gonna put this on independent. Okay, so I'm on independent, and watch as soon as I try to bring up the voltage. It doesn't let me bring it up because I've got this at 0, and this red light's on saying, hey, I'm already there. So let's bring it up a little bit. See, now we got the green light on. So let's bring the voltage up. Now this went into constant current. Now I need to switch this over to current mode. There we go. 0.11. Now let's drop that all the way down the bottom again. See, it's 0. Now the red light stays on. If I just bring this up, once I have some voltage on here, I have a short, so I can sit here and adjust this to, let's say I want 1.5 amps. So I just set it up right about there. So okay, I got it set about 1.5 amps. So then I take away my short. Red light goes off because it's not current limited anymore. Now it's constant voltage. So I'm set up to bring my voltage up, and it'll current limit at 1.5 amps. So that's how you do that. Now when you're in series mode, you push this button out and this one in. Okay, so let's go back to our meter. Okay, and I'll bring this voltage up a little bit. I got to get over voltmeter here. Okay, there's our 7.1. We're in series. So in series, what I have to do is I have to connect this to the slave over here. I have to come over here. Now you see the 14 volts, it's doubled. So that's how you can put them in series. And now I could use this center leg right here. These two guys are tied together internally. So I could use either one of these for my ground. And this would be my plus, this would be my minus. See if I go like this, 7.1, 7.1. Those two things are tied together. So there's plus 7.1, and if I want to read here, I got my minus 7.1. So that's how you can set it up for series. Now in parallel, push them both in, and I got my 7 volts here. And now my current, I can push this over here, and now let's short the current out and set up the current again. 1.5 amps. Now I have 1.5 amps in each side because it's parallel, so I can get up to 3 amps now. Okay, that's how you set up your meter. That meter makes it pretty easy to see how that's done. Let's go up and look at the Tektronix. I'm going to zoom right in on the power supply first. Alright, so now on this power supply, let me bring my meter leads up. But before I do that, let's just talk you through it. So output 1, output 2, output 3. I'll zoom in so you can see those better. Okay, so on this panel you can see output 1 is good for 20 volts, 2.5 amps. Output 2, 20 volts, 2.5 amps. Red, black, and a green in between. And output 3, you got the red, black, and it says 0 to 6 volts, 5 amps. Okay, now if you look at this panel, this is how you can control it. You hit the shift key and you come over here for series or independent, or shift, parallel, independent. And then you have a store, recall, you got some programmability on these things, address, and now here's over current protection on off, or over voltage protection in the blue. You can reset that. So I can set up the voltage on the output. Maybe I can't go over 6 volts, let's say. So I can set over voltage to 6 volts, and that way it'll protect me that I don't go over that. Here's your current up and down, your volts up and down. So let me zoom out a little bit and get that panel in. Okay, now you can see, so step set, volt set. So if I go to volts, turns that off, I say, okay, I'm going to set that for 5 volts. And then enter's right here. Now I'm set up for 5 volts. I want to set my current limit to 1.5 amps. To say current, 1.5, enter. So that makes it a lot easier, right? So I'm setting up channel 2, by the way. There's channel 2 right there. So I have to, channel 2 is this one. If I want to go channel 1, I push blue and hit that one. See, I'm channel 1. It's set for 2 and 9. And then channel 3, it's the 0 to 6 volts, 5 amps. So I can set that one up too. I can set it up to 4. Now what? If I try to go to 7 volts, if I go volt 7, enter, gives me an error because it's only good for 6 volts. So I could say volts 4, enter. So that's how you set them up. Pretty simple, pretty easy. Okay, so I'm on channel 1, and if I go to step set, it shows me 0.1 and 0.02. So I'm set at 0.1 steps. So if I want to hit this each time down, it goes in 0.1 steps. So you know how I was talking about bringing the voltage up and down slow? I can kind of do it with this by stating those steps. But then I can't just hurry and move it, hurry and adjust it, and go slow and fast. I have to kind of do it this way, but still, you can do it. Another thing I want to point out is on both of these power supplies we've looked at so far, each output has its own plus and return. Plus and return. Each one has its own. Okay, I brought you down here so you could see underneath. You can see slave and master. Just wanted to show you that. This is your slave and this is your master. So this is the one you control, output 2, when you put them in series or parallel. Okay, and so this is the old HP. I think that's a 6227B. Dual, oh, there's my meter shutting off. So here's a track independent or tracking, and you can set your meter for volts or amps. So if I'm in volts, I got coarse adjustments. The red one gives me fine adjustments. Can you see it move? Not very much, right? It's fine. That's if you want to really zero it in slowly. And current's kind of set the same way. So you set your current limit and everything the same as I showed you over there. You short the 2 outputs and then you adjust your current. So there we go. And on this one you can see connection for tracking is a plus and minus. So you hook up these 2 this way when you're going in tracking mode in series, okay? So you connect these 2 and then you go from plus to minus. So that hooks them up in series for you. And, you know, nice meter, goes up 2.5, but you can see it rails at 3 amps. So, pretty nice meter. Okay, so I wanted to start off showing you this Dr. meter power supply. It has the same form factor as the two on my bench, it looks like. Maybe a little bit shorter in length. But it's capable of 5 amps at 30 volts. But it operates a lot like the GW Instack on my bench. So I just wanted to show you this power supply. I don't know anything about this company, but for around $180 on Amazon, US dollars, I thought that was a pretty good deal. This is the key site, E3631A triple output power supply, and it is capable of plus minus 25 volts, but only 1 amp. And the 6 volts capable of 5 amps. So it's pretty limited on current. The other thing is, you notice here's a 6 volt output, the third output, and here's the plus minus 25. They call it plus minus 25. They share the return post. So it's plus, minus, and return post is shared. So unlike the other power supplies we're looking at, it doesn't have a plus and return for each dual tracking. It does track the plus minus, obviously. It's just got the track button here. And so I don't know how this operates, but from what I see, it doesn't look like it has the same flexibility or the power as the other ones we're looking at. But it's also $700. So you can adjust the current and the voltage with this knob and these arrows with the voltage and current button. And the display obviously shows voltage and current at the same time. Has quite a few digits, that's nice. The brand name, you know the quality's there, but the power and so on just isn't there. And the flexibility of having 2 independent outputs isn't there either. You're going to have a plus and a minus output. Alright, so this one's right around $389 on Amazon. It's a Siglet. It's a SPD 3303X-E. Alright, so now individual outputs, you have your 2 outputs here. These guys are capable of 32 volts and 3.2 amps. So just over 30 volts and just over 3 amps. There's a LED sitting above the post for each output. This one's showing it's red. And this output here, output number 3, it actually has a fixed output, but there's a 2.5, a 3, a 5. Okay, and so this one here is interesting because it has a knob, but it also has a serial parallel button here, and there's a timer button where I think you can set up voltage switching. So I think it's got rudimentary programming. Again, I don't know how this works. I'm just kind of demonstrating what they look like and giving you some options and prices, pointing out some differences. Now, one of the really cool things about this one is you can set up the voltage and the current, and it shows you your setup, and then it shows you what's actually at the output. Plus it gives you the wattage. So it shows you the wattage up here for what you set these 2 things up for, but then down here it gives you your actuals, what's at the terminals. So I think that's pretty cool. And then it has a little timer thing here saying on or off. So maybe it just would put the voltage on there for a certain amount of time and then turn it off. Maybe that's how the timer works. But there's a software interface for this too. Also, you see the on-off button, so you can do on-off with each output independently. Okay, and this is the Rigol. The Rigol has, it's very much like the Siglet we just saw. It has all that information on the screen, plus some, I think. It has the over voltage, over current protection, tracking's off. Has the 3 individual on-off buttons for each output. The output 1 and 2 is 30 volts at 3 amps. That's these 2 guys. Your output 3 is 5 volt 3 amps. Has a timer function like the Siglet. It also has a number pad, a numerical pad with the knob here, and your up and down arrows and so on. So This one has some programmability as well. I think it is a programmable DC output. So this one here is really nice, but again, you pay a price. This one's $550, so it's the second highest priced one. But this one here really does offer a lot. All right, so here's one I found on eBay. This is very similar to one I have. As a matter of fact, it looks exactly the same. The operation, I believe, is exactly the same. Although it's the 2520, I had the 2521. The difference is this one's capable of higher voltage, 36 volts, which is really nice, but it only goes up to 1.5 amps. But you can put them in parallel so you can get 3 amps at 36 volts for a single output. That's in parallel mode. But anyway, that is nice. It goes higher voltage. Mine only went to 20 volts. This goes to 36. And mine went to 2.5 amps, and this one goes to 1.5. Otherwise, same, looks the same. And it's only $100 on eBay. Now this looks kind of like my GWN stick. Same kind of functionality. It looks very similar. It doesn't have the switch volt amps because it actually shows you amps and volts for each output. So that's pretty darn nice. I like that a lot. And it also has the on-off button. So this is in many ways a step up for mine because it has the same voltage and power levels, but you can see the current volts on each display plus the on-off button. So that's pretty nice. It's $250 on eBay. That's a ProTech 3303L. Okay guys, so big thumbs up for Devish Mohan for asking this question about how to select your power supply. Alright, whoops, I was going to pull up my board here, but before I do, let me just ask you to smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't yet, and check out the links below for these power supplies and the Patreon link. And by the way, thanks to my Patreons, appreciate your support. So here, let's take a look at this guy. It's my whiteboard. Just a quick reminder, some notes. Triple output power supplies. Well, really, do you need triple, or is the dual tracking good enough? And if you do want that third output, is it fixed? Are there several fixed outputs, switchable outputs like we saw in the one power supply, or variable? So something to look at there. Pay attention to at least. And the voltage level and current level. This guy here needs an asterisk out here because that's really an important thing when you're picking out a power supply, right? How much voltage and current do I want out? Knobs or buttons? Now, there's a couple of those supplies that have the knobs and the buttons. They cost a bit more money, but, so that's something to think about. I really like to bring up a power supply slow. That's really an important thing, especially if you're building new circuits or connecting new things. They call it the smoke test, when you just hit the power on button to see if it comes up. And if it doesn't, you see some smoke. I don't like to do it that way. I like to adjust that current limit, bring it up nice and easy. And when you're testing power supplies, by the way, there's a couple modes of operation you want to test for after you've designed and built a power supply. You want to bring it up slow because you want to see how it behaves when it switches on, and when it switches off, the hysteresis there. And it's really hard to do with the switch, with a programmable power supply. Much easier with something with the volume control. Although you can, hit that up arrow, and if you can change the resolution of that, you can do it. Anyway, you want to be able to bring them up and down slow, and then also turn them on and off fast. And if you only have knobs and you don't have that on-off button, the on-off button like down here, if you don't have that, you can pull your banana plug in, and pop it in, or put a switch in line and turn the switch on and off. So, okay, voltage, current level, knobs, buttons, display. Do you want the voltage and the current for each output? Or, in the case like mine, you can set it up certain ways. It's just something to think about and compare, be cognizant of when you're comparing power supplies. Programmable, and then the output on-off button. So just some of the key features of selecting your next power supply. Hey guys, thanks for watching. See you next time. Smash that like button. Subscribe.